My white moonlight, Jiang Ian, and I were in a car accident simultaneously, and both needed blood transfusions. Although our blood types were the same, he demanded that the doctor transfuse blood to his white moonlight first. She's frail, unlike you who are strong and healthy. I quietly transferred to another hospital. He was busy taking care of his white moonlight and didn't even come to see me from beginning to end. By the time he came looking for me, I had already been discharged. A doctor's words made him completely collapse. As the smell of disinfectant pricked my nostrils like needles, I could barely open my eyes. The white ceiling in my vision spun, making me dizzy. My chest felt like it was pressed down by a red-hot iron plate, and every breath I took was accompanied by a tearing pain. I didn't even have the strength to lift my hand. The patient's blood pressure was still dropping. She had lost too much blood and needed a transfusion urgently. The nurse's voice held a hint of hesitation as she fumbled with the instruments, adding more to my readings. I turned my head slightly and saw Su Wanqing lying on the next bed, her face as pale as paper, her eyes unmoving. An oxygen tube was inserted into her nose, and her chest rose and fell so faintly it was almost invisible. Footsteps approached from the doorway, and my heart leaped. It was Jiang Ian. His suit jacket was stained with mud and blood, his hair was a mess, and his usually neatly tied tie was askew. He had clearly rushed here, but his steps didn't pause towards me. He almost stumbled to Su Wanqing's bedside, his voice trembling. "How is Wanqing? Where is the doctor?" The attending physician quickly arrived, holding 2 lab reports, his brows furrowed tightly. "Mr. Jiang, both you and Miss Su are AB blood type. However, there's a temporary issue with the blood bank's supply. We only have enough blood for 1 patient right now. The rest will arrive in half an hour." You see, before the doctor could finish speaking, Jiang Ian interrupted almost immediately, his tone devoid of any hesitation. "Give it to Wanqing first." The fingers I had tucked beneath the covers clenched tightly, my nails digging into my palm, but I felt no pain. I even held onto a sliver of ridiculous hope, waiting for him to add, "and arrange for him as soon as possible." But his next words were like an ice pick, piercing directly into the softest part of my heart. "Wanqing has been weak since childhood. She was hospitalized for half a month with pneumonia last time. She definitely won't be able to withstand this car accident." He spoke, his gaze finally sweeping over me, but there was no worry, no heartache in his eyes, only a kind of almost natural indifference. "She's different. She usually exercises and runs. She's strong and healthy. Waiting half an hour won't matter." The words "strong and healthy" hammered against my eardrums like a heavy hammer. I remembered last week when I came home with a high fever after working overtime until midnight, and he said, "Just take some fever reduces yourself." I have to accompany Wanqing to see her favorite band. I remembered last month when I sprained my ankle and walked with a limp, and he said, "Your little injury is nothing. Wanqing got a little wet yesterday, so I have to bring her ginger tea." So, in his eyes, my strength and my forbearance had become reasons for him to ignore me. The doctor clearly paused, glanced at me, and seemed about to say something, but meeting Jiang Ian's unquestionable gaze, he finally nodded. "All right, I'll arrange for Miss Su to receive the blood transfusion first." The nurse pushed the blood transfusion cart to Su Wanqing's bedside. The clear blood flowed slowly down the 4-tube, reflecting Jiang Ian's tense and concerned profile. Meanwhile, on my 4-stand, the empty tube hung there like a cold snake, and the pain in my chest seemed to intensify. I closed my eyes, not wanting to see that glaring scene anymore. My fingers unconsciously tightened around the hem of my hospital gown. The fabric, long hardened by dried blood, cut into my nails, but I didn't let go, just like the marriage I had clung to for 3 years, already riddled with holes, yet I foolishly refused to let go. Now, it was finally time to let go. Half an hour later, when the blood supply arrived, I was already in so much pain that my consciousness was fading. When the nurse inserted the needle, I didn't flinch. The cold needle tip pierced my vein, and the slightly warm fluid slowly flowed into my body, but the chill in my heart didn't lessen in the slightest. After the blood transfusion, I caught my breath and immediately pressed the call button by the bed. An older caregiver came in, an aunt who looked kind, with a hoarse voice. I struggled to explain my request. "Auntie, can you help me contact a private hospital, preferably one that can arrange a transfer right away?" The caregiver paused, glanced toward the door and said, "Miss, isn't your husband in the next room, something as big as transferring hospitals? Shouldn't you discuss it with him?" I forced a smile, but it looked more like a grimace. "No need, I can decide for myself." The caregiver seemed to sense something was wrong and didn't ask further. She took out her phone and helped me contact a hospital. I leaned against the headboard, my gaze fixed on the doorway of the ward. From day to night, Jiang Yian's figure never appeared. When the caregiver returned with my meal, she casually mentioned, "The next room is quite lively. Mr. Lee has been staying by that Miss Sue's side. He even fed her porridge himself earlier." So thoughtful, my hand holding the water cup trembled slightly, spilling warm water onto my wrist. The cool sensation helped soothe the restlessness in my heart. The private hospital's ambulance arrived quickly. As the caregiver helped me pack my things, she let out a soft ah when she found the pregnancy test slip in the bedside drawer. She quickly covered her mouth and glanced at me cautiously. "That slip was from 3 days ago, when I secretly went to the hospital for a checkup. 2 clear red lines were visible. I had originally planned to give it to Jiang Yian as a gift on our 3rd wedding anniversary. Now, the thought felt absurd and laughable. I folded the slip neatly and tucked it into my bag. This child was my treasure alone. It had nothing to do with Jiang Yian anymore. The caregiver handled all the transfer procedures for me. I was so weak that even signing my name took several shaky attempts. As the ambulance siren blared, I took one last look at the ward. Su Wanqing's bed was surrounded by people, and Jiang Yian was bending over to tuck her in, his movements gentle as if handling a priceless treasure. I closed my eyes, shutting that scene out completely. The new hospital ward was very quiet. Lying in the sickbed, I finally mustered some strength and picked up my phone. The screen showed over a dozen missed calls, all from Jiang Yian, along with a text message sent half an hour ago. "I can't leave Wanqing's side right now. Take good care of yourself and ask the nurse if you need anything." No concern, no apology, not even a single word of explanation. I let out a cold laugh, swiped my finger across the screen, dragged his number into the blacklist, and deleted all the chat records saved under the contact name husband along with it. After doing all this, I felt as if a 1,000-pound burden had been lifted off my shoulders, and my entire body relaxed considerably. The caregiver brought me dinner, a light millet porridge. I had just taken 2 sips when my phone rang again. It was my best friend, Lin Wei. As soon as she heard my voice, she burst into tears. "Nyan Nyan, you scared me to death. If the hospital hadn't called me, I wouldn't have known you were in a car accident. What about Jiang Yian? That bastard, isn't he with you?" "I have nothing to do with him anymore," I replied, drinking my porridge, my tone so calm it even surprised me. "I transferred to another hospital and won't have any involvement with him from now on." Lin Wei on the other end of the line paused for a moment before erupting in anger. "You should have cut ties with him long ago. Wait for me. I'm booking a flight right now to come and stay with you." After hanging up, I leaned against the headboard, watching the sky outside gradually darken. In the distance, neon lights flickered on, casting a blurry glow on the wall through the glass. The pain in my chest still lingered faintly, but I knew that compared to the wound in my heart, this pain was nothing. "Jiang Yian, from today onward, I, Shen Yan, am no longer the wife who revolved around you, only to be ignored." When Lin Wei rushed over, I was leaning by the window, basking in the sunlight. As soon as she pushed the door open, her eyes reddened. She placed a thermal container on the bedside table, reached out to touch me but hesitated, afraid of hurting my wounds. Finally, she poked my arm hard. "Shen Yan, are you an idiot? How could you think about transferring hospitals on your own at a time like that?" I took the bird's nest porridge she handed me. The warmth of the porcelain bowl spread to my palm, cozy and comforting. I couldn't just stay there waiting for him to show some concern, could I? I scooped a spoonful of porridge and brought it to my lips, my tone so light it sounded as if I were talking about someone else's affairs. Lin Wei rolled her eyes in frustration and began to rant about Jiang Yian. "I've always said he only has Su Wanqing in his heart, but you refused to believe it. For 3 years of marriage, on your birthday, he was with Su Wanqing. When you were sick, he was with Su Wanqing. And now, even when your life was hanging by a thread, he donated his blood to someone else." I didn't respond. How could I not know everything Lin Wei was saying? It was just that I had always clung to the illusion that if I tried hard enough, I could one day warm his heart. Only now did I realize that some people's hearts are made of stone. Even if you burn yourself to ashes, you can't warm them in the slightest. On the 5th day of my hospital stay, the doctor scheduled a comprehensive re-examination for me. Lin Wei helped me to the examination room, discussing with me along the way, once you're mostly recovered, divorce him, the house, the car, the savings, not a single penny of yours should be left behind. I nodded, already having made up my mind. I just never expected the re-examination results to hit me so hard. The moment I held the examination report, my fingers trembled uncontrollably. The doctor sitting opposite me adjusted his glasses, his tone gentler than usual. Miss Shen, did you have any previous gynecological issues? I was taken aback, remembering the accidental miscarriage 2 years ago. At that time, Jiang Yian was accompanying Su Wanqing abroad for insomnia treatment, and I was lying on the operating table alone. After the surgery, the doctor specifically instructed me to rest well, otherwise, future pregnancies would be difficult and even life-threatening. However, shortly after being discharged from the hospital, I had to go on a business trip due to urgent company matters. Upon my return, I was busy taking care of a sick Jiang Yian, and I completely neglected my own health. Yes, I had a miscarriage 2 years ago and didn't recover properly. My voice was a little tight. The impact of this car accident has injured your pelvic area, triggering an emergency complication. The doctor pointed to the indicators on the report, his brow furrowed. Your uterine lining is very thin now, and there's slight adhesion, coupled with the excessive blood loss this time. Your body's foundation is severely depleted. Most importantly, you are pregnant, and this situation is very unstable. You must have long-term bed rest. If you're not careful, it could lead to— I didn't hear the rest of his words. My ears were buzzing, and only the words "you are pregnant now" echoed repeatedly. I subconsciously reached out to touch my lower abdomen. It was still flat, and there was no sign of a new life growing within. Yet, I could clearly feel a wondrous connection. This is my child with Jiang Yian. But when I thought of Jiang Yian's choice that day, my heart felt like it was submerged in ice water. He couldn't even care about the life or death of his wife, so how could he care about this unborn child? Doctor, can this situation be saved? I looked up, my gaze filled with unprecedented determination. No matter what Jiang Yian does, I am keeping this child, as long as you strictly follow the doctor's orders, rest well, and maintain a stable mood. There is still a great hope. The doctor comforted me. But you must be careful not to be stimulated again, nor to overexert yourself. It's best to find a quiet place to nurture the pregnancy. As I walked out of the doctor's office, Lin Wei immediately noticed something was wrong with me. What's wrong? What did the doctor say? I handed her the examination report and pointed to the line indicating 6 weeks of pregnancy. Lin Wei's eyes widened instantly, and then turned red. Nyan Nyan, this child, I interrupted her. I'm going to raise it myself. My tone was unusually calm. I won't tell Jiang Yian, and I will never let him know about this child's existence. Lin Wei looked at me and was silent for a few seconds. Then nodded heavily. Okay, I'll support whatever you want to do. My old house is in the suburbs, with a small courtyard and a very good environment. When you're discharged from the hospital, you can go there to live, and I'll stay with you. The sunset shone through the corridor window, falling on the back of my hand. Warm and comforting. I looked down at my lower abdomen, and a faint smile slowly curved my lips. Jiang Yian, you missed out on me, and now you're going to miss out on our child. This time, you pushed us away with your own hands. And there's no chance of turning back. When Su Wanqing woke up, Jiang Yian's anxious heart finally settled. He stayed by the bedside, personally wiping her hands and feeding her water, even waving away nurses who offered to help, as if he wished to take on all the caregiving tasks himself. Ian, my head feels so dizzy. Su Wanqing's voice was soft, carrying the weakness of someone just waking up, her eyelashes fluttering lightly. Where's Nianjie? She was with us during the car accident that day. She mentioned my name. Jiang Yian paused for a moment, only then belatedly realizing that he hadn't visited Shenyang for several days. That day, she had asked the nurses to prioritize giving Wanqing a blood transfusion. Later, as Wanqing remained unconscious, he had been busy contacting the best experts and arranging a special care ward, completely forgetting about Shenyang. She's fine, strong, and healthy. She recovered after the blood transfusion. Jiang Yian casually reassured Su. Wanqing, his tone carrying a hint of indifference. I'll have my assistant send her some supplements later. Su Wanqing pursed her lips and said nothing more, though a faint, almost imperceptible glint flashed in her eyes. Jiang Yian stayed with Su Wanqing for another 2 hours, only leaving after she fell asleep again. Intending to check on Shenyan, he walked to the door of the previous ward, but the moment he pushed it open, he froze in place. The hospital bed was empty, the sheets neatly folded, and the bedside table was bare. Even the thermos Shenyan had placed there earlier was gone. Where is she? Jiang Yian frowned and stopped a passing nurse. Where did the patient in this ward go? The nurse thought for a moment before it dawned on her. Oh, you mean Miss Shen? She transferred to another hospital 3 days ago. Transferred? Jiang Yian's voice suddenly rose. Who allowed her to transfer? Why wasn't I informed? Miss Shen arranged the hospital transfer herself and handled all the procedures, the nurse replied, giving him a strange look. That day, you were staying in the neighboring ward with Miss Su. Miss Shen asked a caregiver for help. We advised her that it would be best to discuss a transfer with her family, but she insisted on leaving and said there was no need to tell you. Jiang Yian's heart sank, a nameless irritation welling up in his chest. He took out his phone and skillfully dialed Shenyan's number, but instead of the familiar ringtone, he heard a mechanical female voice. Hello, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please check the number and dial again. He thought he had misheard and dialed again, but the same prompt played. Jiang Yian's fingers tightened, his knuckles turning white, and the phone screen felt hot from his grip. Shenyan had actually blocked him and deactivated her number. This realization made him inexplicably angry. He admitted that he had prioritized Wanqing when it came to the blood transfusion that day. But was Shenyan overreacting this much? Just because she had to wait an extra half hour, she was demanding a transfer and blocking his calls. Where had her previous thoughtfulness and understanding gone? Jiang's assistant hurried over, holding a document. Here is the follow-up treatment plan for Miss Su that you requested. The experts have reviewed it. Jiang Yian took the file but didn't have the mental capacity to look at it. He waved his hand, his tone impatient. Go and find out which hospital Shenyan transferred to, and where she is now. The assistant was taken aback, clearly not expecting him to suddenly care about Miss Shen. But he immediately replied, Yes, Mr. Jiang, I'll check right away. Jiang Yian stood in the empty hospital room, his gaze sweeping over the hooks on the wall. In the past, when Shenyan was hospitalized, she would always hang his suit jacket there, but now, it was empty, just like a piece of his heart had suddenly become vacant. He remembered how Shenyan always endured her illnesses silently, how she quit her favorite job to support his career and became a full-time housewife at home. He remembered when they first got married, her eyes sparkling as she said she wanted to have a son just like him. Those memories suddenly became vivid, overlapping with the image of Shenyan lying on the hospital bed that day, her pale face looking at him. For the first time, a strange emotion stirred in Jiang Yian's heart. Not worry for Wanqing, but a sense of emptiness. He took out his phone and scrolled through his contacts, only to find that besides the phone number that was now out of service, he had no other way to contact Shenyan. His WeChat account was still stuck on the message he sent 3 days ago, rest well. And I'll talk to you later. There had been no new messages since. The assistant's call came through quickly, his tone hesitant. Mr. Jiang, I couldn't find her. Miss Shen used private channels for her transfer, and all her information is encrypted. Even the nurses at the previous hospital didn't know where she went. Jiang Yian leaned against the cold wall, feeling for the first time that Shenyan, who had always followed him and never left no matter how much he ignored her, seemed to be truly disappearing from his world. This feeling made him inexplicably flustered and disoriented. Jiang Yian couldn't sit still in his office. The assistant had been searching all afternoon and only found out that the ambulance used on the day Shenyan transferred belonged to a private hospital in the west of the city. However, the hospital refused to disclose any information, citing patient privacy. He smashed the crystal glass on the table, and the shards splashed into his palm, leaving a bloody scratch. But it was far less intense than the irritation in his heart. Useless, he roared at his assistant. You can't even find a person. What's the use of keeping all of you? The assistant turned pale with fear and dared not utter a word. Jiang Yian took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. He suddenly remembered that Shenyan had been staying in a public hospital before transferring, and he knew the attending physician. Perhaps he could ask the doctor for some information. He grabbed his coat and rushed out, driving twice as fast as usual, running 2 red lights straight to the hospital. When he found the attending physician, the doctor was writing medical records in his office. Dr. Lee, where on earth did Shenyan go? Jiang Ian grabbed the doctor's wrist, his tone urgent. Why did she suddenly transfer hospitals? Is she angry with me? Tell me her address. I'll go explain to her. Dr. Lee winced in pain from his grip, frowning as he pulled his hand back and adjusted his glasses. Mr. Jiang, please calm down first. Miss Shen's transfer was her own decision. I really don't know where she went. I don't know. Jiang Ian's voice was filled with anger. She was hospitalized here with you. How could you not know? That day, I asked to give Su Wanqing a blood transfusion first. Was she angry because of that? Wasn't it just an extra half-hour wait? Was it really that serious? Dr. Lee suddenly interrupted him, his eyes clearly displeased. Mr. Jiang, do you know what I said to Miss Shen before she transferred? Jiang Ian froze. After the blood supply arrived that day, I gave Miss Shen the transfusion and mentioned to her in passing that she should rest well, especially since she's pregnant. She can't afford to be careless. Dr. Lee's tone was calm, but his words exploded like thunder in Jiang Ian's ears. His face changed at the time, and he asked if I could keep it a secret for him, saying he didn't want you to know for now. I agreed, so I didn't mention it to you. Pregnant. Jiang Ian's voice began to tremble, as if he had heard something out of a fairy tale. What did you say? She's pregnant. Yes, 6 weeks pregnant. Dr. Lee nodded and handed him a copy of a stored examination report. This was the examination done on the day he was admitted. The HCG value was very clear, but the situation was urgent at the time, and there was no time to explain it to you in detail. By the way, Mr. Jiang, there is something I need to make clear to you. The doctor paused, his gaze falling on his face. With a hint of imperceptible condemnation medically, pregnant women belong to a special group, and their priority in blood transfusion should be higher than that of ordinary patients, especially Miss Shen, who had a history of miscarriage before. This car accident combined with blood loss had a great impact on her. If the blood source had not arrived in time that day, the consequences would have been unimaginable. 6 weeks pregnant, with a history of miscarriage, her priority should have been higher. These words struck Jiang Ian's heart like heavy hammers. He looked at the examination report, where the words pregnancy status were particularly glaring, as if mocking his stupidity and indifference. 6 weeks ago, it was just a few days before their 3rd wedding anniversary. He remembered that Shenyan had cooked a table full of his favorite dishes that day, and she had specially worn his favorite dress. Her eyes sparkled as she looked at him, as if she had something to tell him. But at that time, he received a call from Su Wanqing, who said she was in a bad mood and asked him to go and keep her company, so he left in a hurry, without even saying happy anniversary to Shen Nyan. So, she wanted to tell him that they had a child, and him, when she was carrying their child and her life was hanging by a thread, he asked the doctor to transfuse blood to another woman first, on the grounds that he was strong and healthy and could wait half an hour. Jiang Ian's heart felt as if it were being tightly clenched by an invisible hand, the pain so intense he could barely breathe. He staggered back a step, knocking over the chair behind him with a loud crash. Fragments splattered onto his pant leg, but he didn't even notice. He remembered Shenyan lying in the hospital bed, her pale face looking at him with eyes that held no resentment, only a profound disappointment. He remembered her resolute decision to transfer hospitals, how she blocked his number, how she vanished without a trace. It wasn't that he was overreacting. He had hurt her too deeply. Had she ever mentioned when she found out she was pregnant? Jiang Ian's voice trembled uncontrollably, his fingers gripping the report so tightly they turned white from the strain. Had he ever said he wanted this child? Dr. Lee shook his head. He hadn't said much, only that he wanted to keep the baby. Mr. Jiang, forgive me for saying this, but Miss Shen is a good girl. You've really let her down. Jiang Ian leaned against the wall, feeling as if all the strength had been drained from his body. Sunlight streamed in through the window, falling on his face, but it couldn't warm the chill in his heart. For the first time, he realized he might have truly made a mistake, a terrible, unforgivable mistake that might have cost him Shenyan forever. along with their unborn child. Leaving the hospital, Jiang Yian's steps felt unsteady and hollow. He sat in the car, clutching the copy of the pregnancy test report tightly in his hand. The paper was damp with sweat, its edges wrinkled. The driver asked where to go, and it took him a long moment to rasp out, "Back to the apartment." It was the marital home he and Shenyan had shared, decorated entirely by Shenyan. He had once said he wanted to make it the warmest place, so she could leave her fatigue behind every time she came home. But in the past, he had always found it too much trouble, preferring to stay in the company dormitory and rarely returning. The key slid into the lock with a soft click as he turned it. The moment he pushed the door open, Jiang Yian's heart sank completely. The living room was empty. The sofa, coffee table, and TV stand were all gone. Only a painting hung on the wall, a portrait Shenyan had painted herself for his birthday last year, depicting the two of them together. The faint scent of gardenia, Shenyan's favorite fragrance, still lingered in the air. It was subtle, yet it pierced his nostrils like needles. Staggering into the bedroom, he found the wardrobe empty, the vanity empty. Even her favorite lipstick was gone. In the bathroom, her toothbrush, towels, and skincare products had all vanished. Without a trace, it was as if she had never lived there at all. Only the drawer of the bedside table was slightly ajar. Jiang Yian walked over, opened the drawer. There were no valuables inside, only a blue notebook and a small velvet box. He picked up the notebook and flipped to the first page. It was Shenyan's familiar, elegant handwriting, dated the day they got married. "Today I married Jiang Yian. I feel like I have the whole world. He had dinner with me today and even took food for me. I feel so happy, it's like a dream. Wanqing came to our house again. He talked with her for 3 hours. The soup I made got cold, and he didn't even have a sip. It's okay, he just treats Wanqing like a sister. I think I'm pregnant. I'll go to the hospital tomorrow to confirm. If it's true, I want to give him a surprise. Confirmed 6 weeks pregnant, my baby. I'll tell him on our 3rd anniversary." The date on the last page was the day before the car accident. The handwriting was slightly smudged by tears. It was evident he was very emotional at the time. Jiang Yian's fingers traced the words, and tears fell without warning, splashing onto the paper, overlapping with Shenyan's tear stains. He opened the velvet box. Inside lay a plain band ring, not the diamond ring he bought for Shenyan, but one he bought with his first paycheck, calling it a couple's ring and insisting he wear it. He thought it was childish then and took it off after wearing it for a day, throwing it in the drawer, and never touching it again. But Shenyan's ring was always on her hand, until the day of the car accident. In the hospital, she still had that ring firmly on her ring finger. The call from CEO Jiang's assistant came, her voice choked with sobs. "We've searched all the private hospitals in the city, and there's no admission record for Miss Shen. Her bank card hasn't had any recent transactions, and her ID hasn't been used. It's like she vanished into thin air." Jiang Yian leaned against the empty wall, sliding down to the floor, his knees drawn to his chest. He remembered the orderly saying when Shenyan was transferred that he insisted on leaving. No need to tell him. He remembered the doctor saying he wanted to save the child. He remembered her blocking his number and clearing out their home. She had truly intended to leave him completely. His phone rang again. It was Su Wanqing's number. Jiang Yian answered, his voice devoid of its usual gentleness, filled only with exhaustion and impatience. "What is it, Ian? I'm not feeling well. Can you come back and keep me company?" Su Wanqing's voice was tinged with grievance. "I'm scared. I'll have a nurse come over to stay with you." Jiang Yian interrupted her. "I have an urgent matter right now." Without waiting for Su Wanqing to say anything else, he hung up and tossed his phone aside. In the past, even a slight frown from Su Wanqing would make his heart ache, but now his mind was filled with images of Shenyan, pregnant and alone. Transferring to another hospital, he simply couldn't spare a thought for Su Wanqing's feelings. Suddenly, he remembered that Shenyan had a close friend named Lin Wei, with whom she shared a deep bond. He immediately pulled out his phone, found Lin Wei's number, and dialed. The phone rang for a long time before it was finally answered. Lin Wei's voice was laced with hostility. "Jiang Yian, how dare you call me? Where is Shenyan?" Jiang Yian's voice was pleading. "I know I was wrong, Lin Wei. Please tell me where she is. I need to see her. I want to take responsibility for her and the child." Lin Wei let out a cold laugh. When you made her wait an extra half-hour for a blood transfusion, why didn't you think about responsibility, when you were busy taking care of Su Wanqing and ignored her well-being? Why didn't you think about responsibility, Jiang Yian? Don't you think it's too late to say all this now? I won't tell you where Nyan Nyan is. Just give up. The call was mercilessly disconnected, and when he tried calling again, he was met with a busy signal. Jiang Yian knew Lin Wei had blocked him too. He sat on the cold floor, staring at the empty room, feeling utterly hopeless for the first time. He possessed billions in assets and controlled a vast business empire. Yet now he couldn't even find his own wife and unborn child, Shen Yan. He murmured her name, his voice hoarse and broken. Please come back. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. The only response was the echo reverberating in the room and the deepening twilight outside the window. Jiang Yian abruptly stood up, grabbed his phone, and barked at his driver, to Su Wanqing's hospital. He had to find out if Shen Yan's departure was related to Su Wanqing. If it was, he would never let her off. The breeze in the small town carried the fresh scent of grass and trees, brushing gently against my face. I sat in a wicker chair in the courtyard of Lin Wei's hometown, holding a cup of warm red date and goji berry tea, my gaze fixed absently on the rosebush in the corner of the wall nearby. Lin Wei had gone to town to buy some things, repeatedly reminding me before she left not to go out casually and to rest peacefully at home to nurture the pregnancy. This place was far from the city's hustle and bustle. With no familiar faces and no news about Jiang Yian, it was indeed a good place to recuperate. The courtyard gate was pushed open gently, the footsteps light, thinking it was Lin Wei returning. I looked up and saw a familiar figure, Nyan Nyan. Lin Mo stood at the doorway, dressed in a simple white t-shirt and jeans, holding a large thermal container. A cautious smile played on his lips. He was my childhood friend who had moved away due to a job transfer, and we hadn't seen each other for 2 years. I was taken aback, not expecting him to be here. How did you know I was here? Lin Wei told me. Lin Mo walked into the courtyard and placed the insulated container on the stone table. I heard you were in a car accident and are pregnant, so I took time off and rushed over right away. His gaze fell on my abdomen with gentle concern. Without the slightest hint of strangeness, my heart warmed, though I also felt a bit flustered. Lin Mo had always known about Jiang Yian and me. When I got married, he even made a special trip back to attend the wedding, smiling as he said, "Take good care of yourself from now on. If you ever feel wronged, come find me anytime." Looking back now, there seemed to be a faint, almost imperceptible bitterness hidden in his smile back then. "Thank you for making the trip." I picked up the teacup and took a sip, masking the emotions in my heart. "Why be so polite with me?" Lin Mo opened the insulated container, revealing the fragrant chicken soup inside. "My mom heard you were pregnant and specially stewed this hen soup for several hours. She asked me to bring it over to help nourish your body." He ladled a bowl and handed it to me. "It's cooled down a bit. Drink it slowly." The chicken soup was rich and flavorful, with a subtle hint of medicinal herbs, clearly prepared specifically for a pregnant woman. I took a sip, and the warm broth slid down my throat, warming me to the core. It reminded me of the times when I was sick in the past, and Lin Mo would always find ways to make delicious food for me, taking care of me with meticulous attention. "What did the doctor say?" Lin Mo sat on the stone stool opposite me, his tone gentle. "Can your body handle it?" "The doctor said I need long-term rest, no stress, and to take my medication and follow-up appointments on time. There's still hope to keep the baby," I said softly, my fingers unconsciously tracing the rim of the bowl. "I plan to stay here and focus on the pregnancy. Once the baby is born, I'll raise them on my own." Lin Mo nodded without pressing about Jiang Yian. Instead, he said, "Don't worry, I'm here." I wouldn't feel at ease leaving Lin Wei alone to take care of you. "I've already applied for long-term leave from work and will stay here with you." I hesitated. "Won't that be too much trouble for you? You're so busy with work. Work isn't as important as you are." Lin Mo cut me off, his expression serious. "Nyan Nyan, we grew up together. I've always cared for you like a little sister. Now that you're going through something so difficult, I can't just stand by. Besides, I want to see the baby born and watch them grow up." His words were sincere, without the slightest hint of ambiguity, and they gradually eased the tension that had been coiled inside me for so long. These past few days, I had been living in the shadow of the car accident and the pain Jiang Ian had caused, constantly on edge, afraid something might happen to the baby. Lin Mo's presence felt like a beam of light, illuminating my grey world. In the following days, Lin Mo truly took care of me as he promised, never leaving my side. Every morning, he would prepare a nutritionally balanced breakfast for me on time. In the mornings, he would accompany me for walks in the courtyard. In the afternoons, he would help me read parenting books. In the evenings, he would tell me interesting stories from his travels to amuse me. Once, I suddenly had a stomachache in the middle of the night, and I was trembling with fear. Hearing the commotion, Lin Mo immediately rushed in from the next room. Without a word, he picked me up and ran towards the town hospital. The small town was very dark at night, and there were no streetlights on the road. He ran, his feet sinking into the ground with each step, sweat soaking his hair. Yet, he never put me down. He kept comforting me, saying, "Nyan Nyan, don't be afraid, we'll be at the hospital soon. You and the baby will be fine." The examination results showed it was just a false contraction, a false alarm. The doctor instructed me to remain calm and avoid any further frights. On the way back from the hospital, Lin Mo held my hand the entire time. The warmth and strength in his palm inexplicably made me feel at ease. "I'm sorry for making you worry," I said softly. "What are you apologizing for?" Lin Mo stopped, turned to look at me, his eyes filled with tenderness. "Nyan Nyan, you've already suffered so much. From now on, with me here, I won't let you be wronged in any way. Nor will I let the child be in any danger." Looking into his sincere eyes, my nose stung, and tears almost fell. I thought of Jiang Ian, of her decisive choice in the hospital, of her coldness and neglect. Contrasting this with Lin Mo's meticulous care and thoughtfulness, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. Perhaps some destinies were wrong from the very beginning. Jiang Ian and I were ultimately destined to miss each other. Lin Mo's appearance made me understand what it felt like to be cherished and doted upon. The setting sun cast golden afterglow over the courtyard, bathing everything in a warm, hazy glow. Lin Mo was watering the rose bushes, his tall, straight back exuding gentleness. I leaned back in the rattan chair, gently stroking my belly, a faint, unconscious smile curling at the corners of my lips. "Jiang Ian, thank you for letting go, giving me the chance to find warmth and the courage to protect this little life on my own. From now on, my life has nothing to do with you." When Jiang Ian rushed into Su Wanqing's hospital room, she was leaning against the headboard, scrolling through her phone. Her complexion was rosy, showing no sign of any discomfort. Seeing his dark expression, Su Wanqing instinctively put her phone away, her voice tinged with panic. "Ian, why are you back? It was you, wasn't it?" Jiang Ian clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. "Shenyan transferred hospitals and disappeared. Did you say something to her?" Su Wanqing's eyes flickered briefly before welling up with tears. "Ian, how can you say that to me? I have no grudge against Sister Nyenyen. Why would I harm her? I was injured in the car accident too and have been lying in the hospital all this time. How could I have said anything to her? No grudge." Jiang Ian sneered, stepping closer to her. "Do you really think I don't know? You've always been jealous of Nyan. Ever since we started dating, you've constantly targeted her, saying she wasn't good enough for me. Last time she had a miscarriage, you deliberately called me to come and keep you company, didn't you?" Over the years, he hadn't been completely unaware of Su Wanqing's intentions, but he had always treated her like a little sister who needed looking after, turning a blind eye. But now, with Shenyan carrying his child, vanishing without a trace, he could no longer deceive himself. Su Wanqing retreated to the headboard, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't, Ian. You can't pin all the blame on me just because Sister Nyenyen is gone. I truly see you as my brother and her as my sister." Looking at her tear-streaked face, Jiang Ian felt not an ounce of pity, only disgust. He turned and walked away, pausing at the door, his voice icy. "Su Wanqing, from now on, there is no relationship between us. If you dare harm Shenyan or the child, I will never let you off." Leaving the hospital, Jiang Ian didn't return to the company or go anywhere else, but instead went back to the apartment he shared with Shenyan. The empty room now held only the painting on the wall and the notebook and ring in the bedside drawer. She sat on the floor, reopening the blue notebook, carefully reading page by page. Shenyan's handwriting was delicate, and between the lines, it was filled with love for him and anticipation for the future. He worked overtime late today, so I made pork rib soup and waited for him. He took a sip and said it was delicious. I was so happy. He seems really tired lately. I prepared a foot soak for him, hoping he can sleep well. Wanqing said she was sick, so he went to stay with her again. Actually, I'm not feeling well either, but I don't dare tell him, afraid he'll think I'm being dramatic. I think I might be pregnant. I'm both happy and scared. Happy because I'll have our child, but scared that he might not like the baby because of Wanqing. Reading this, Jiang Yian couldn't hold back her tears again. She remembered the day before Shenyan's car accident, when she wore her favorite dress, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him, hesitating to speak, so that was what she wanted to tell him, the good news. But he had rushed out of the house because of a call from Su Wanqing. Without even saying a word of concern, with trembling hands, she flipped to the last page of the notebook and suddenly discovered a piece of paper tucked into a hidden layer. Pulling it out, she saw it was a pregnancy test report. Dated the day before the accident, the HCG value clearly indicated a pregnancy. In the doctor's notes section, it read, "Advise rest, avoid fatigue, and schedule regular follow-ups." This thin piece of paper felt like a 1,000-pound weight pressing down on Jiang Yian's heart. She could imagine how much anticipation and anxiety Shenyan must have felt while holding this pregnancy test report. She must have wanted to surprise him on their 3rd anniversary, but instead, she had given him the cruelest blow. She remembered that day at the hospital, Shenyan lying in the hospital bed, pale-faced, her eyes filled with disappointment. She remembered the doctor saying that pregnant patients should have higher priority for blood transfusions. Remembered her history of miscarriage, and remembered his resolute decision to transfer her to another hospital. "Shenyan, I'm sorry." Jiang Yian crouched on the floor, clutching the pregnancy test report and the notebook, her shoulders trembling violently as she wept, her cries suppressed and filled with despair. "I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I shouldn't have ignored you. Shouldn't have let you suffer so much, shouldn't have chosen someone else when you needed me the most." Her sobs echoed in the empty room, sounding especially desolate. He remembered everything Shenyan had done for him, quitting her favorite job to support his career, learning to cook his favorite dishes to take care of his daily life, being gentle and dignified in front of his friends for his sake, and even forgiving him time and time again after he had neglected and hurt her, hoping for his change of heart. And what had he given her in return? Disappointment after disappointment, hurt after hurt, and when she was on the verge of death carrying their child, he had unhesitatingly chosen another woman. "I'm a scumbag." Jiang Yian punched his chest hard, wincing in pain but not stopping. "I don't deserve you. You don't deserve the child. Shenyan, can you come back? I don't want anything. I just want you and the child." He didn't know how long he cried, only stopping when his voice was hoarse and his tears had run dry. The sky outside had turned dark, and the room was pitch black without any lights on. He curled up on the floor, clutching the prenatal checkup report and his laptop, like a lost child. At this moment, he finally understood that Shenyan was not a passerby in his life, but the person he should have cherished the most. Her love was like air, imperceptible in its presence. But when it completely disappeared, he realized he couldn't breathe. He took out his phone and dialed Lin Wei's number again, but it was still unreachable. He sent countless text messages, each filled with regret and pleading, but received no reply. Jiang Yian knew that anything he said now was too late. He could only hope to find Shenyan as soon as possible and spend the rest of his life making up for his debt to her. He stood up, wiped the tears from his face, his eyes becoming resolute. No matter where Shenyan hid, he would find her. Even if she never forgave him, he would stay by her side to protect her and the child until they were safe. The streets of the small town were paved with bluestone slabs, and the leaves of the plane trees on both sides had turned golden yellow from the autumn wind, rustling as we walked on them. I walked slowly, arm in arm with Lin Mo. He carried the fresh fruit he had just bought and occasionally turned his head to say something to me, his voice so gentle it could drip. The baby in my belly was almost 3 months old, and the morning sickness had gradually subsided, though I still felt tired occasionally. Lin Mo always took care of me meticulously, slowing his pace when we walked and holding my hand tightly when there were steps. He even washed the fruit in advance, cut it into small pieces, and put it in a fresh keeping box so I could eat it anytime. There's a new dessert shop ahead. I heard their white fungus soup is good. Do you want to try it? Lin Mo pointed to the shop not far away, his eyes asking. I smiled and nodded. Okay. Just as we were about to cross the road, a familiar figure suddenly appeared across the street, striking me like a bolt of lightning. Jiang Yiyan stood there, wearing a wrinkled black coat, his hair messy, his eyes bloodshot, and a bluish stubble on his chin. He looked utterly haggard, completely unlike his usual spirited self. His gaze was fixed on me, as if he had found a lifeline. His eyes filled with ecstasy, regret, and cautious pleading. Seeing me arm in arm with Lin Mo, his eyes instantly dimmed, and his chest heaved violently. My smile froze on my face, and my body instinctively moved to hide behind Lin Mo. Lin Mo immediately sensed something was wrong with me and followed my gaze. When he saw Jiang Yiyan, his brow furrowed, and he subtly shielded me behind him. Jiang Yiyan crossed the street and quickly walked up to us, his steps somewhat unsteady. He looked at me, his lips trembling, unable to utter a word for a long time, tears welling up in his eyes, red and frightening. Nyan Nyan. He finally squeezed out my name, his voice hoarse as if sanded by sandpaper. I've been looking for you for so long, and I finally found you. I didn't speak, just stared at him coldly. Seeing him again, my heart felt no ripples, only a numb calm. The pain that once tore me apart had now turned into thick armor, protecting me and the child in my womb. Jiang Yiyan took a white medicine box from his bag and handed it to me, his hands trembling slightly from nervousness. This is the best prenatal medicine I had someone find. The doctor said it's good for you and the baby. Take it on time. His movements were clumsy, and the medicine box nearly fell to the ground. I looked at the box, then at his haggard face, and suddenly found it all ridiculous. When I needed him the most, he chose someone else. Now that I no longer need him, he's here playing the role of a devoted lover. What's the point of this belated concern? No need, I said flatly, my voice devoid of any warmth. My child doesn't need anything from you. I raised my hand and pushed away the medicine box he offered without hesitation. The box fell to the ground, the pills inside scattering and rolling across the bluestone pavement like shattered tears. Jiang Yiyan's body stiffened abruptly, the color draining from his face, leaving it deathly pale. He stared at the pills scattered on the ground, then looked up at me, his eyes filled with disbelief and pain. Nyan Nyan, do you hate me so much? You won't even give me a chance to make amends, I sneered, my gaze sharp as I looked at him. Jiang Yiyan, do you think what you owe me can be made up for with a box of prenatal medicine? When you let the doctor give Su Wanqing a blood transfusion first, why didn't you think about making amends? When I was pregnant and transferred hospitals alone while you stayed by someone else's side, why didn't you think about making amends? My voice wasn't loud, but every word struck like a dagger to the heart. Jiang Yiyan's body swayed, staggering back a step, his hands tightly clenched into fists, nails digging deep into his palms until they drew blood. I know, I was terribly wrong. His voice choked with tears, and finally, he couldn't hold them back any longer. I shouldn't have ignored you, shouldn't have hurt you, shouldn't have let you suffer so much. Nyan Nyan, I really know I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I'll take good care of you and the child. I'll spoil you like a princess. I'll listen to everything you say. It's too late. I cut him off, my tone firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Jiang Yiyan, from the moment you made that choice, it was completely over between us. This child is mine alone and has nothing to do with you. What you're saying now is nothing but self-deception. Lin Mo gently patted my back, giving me a reassuring look, then turned to Jiang Yiyan, his voice icy. Mr. Jiang, please show some self-respect. Nyan Nyan needs to rest now and doesn't want to be disturbed. Please leave and don't come back to bother her. Jiang Yiyan's gaze fell on Lin Mo's hand resting on my back, his eyes filled with jealousy and pain, yet he dared not act on it. He knew he had no right to demand anything from Shenyan now, much less to stop others from being good to her. He looked at me, his eyes filled with despair. Nyan Nyan, I won't give up, no matter how you treat me. I'll stay by your side to protect you and the child, even if you never forgive me. I won't leave. I didn't look at him again. I took Lin Mo's hand and turned to leave, my steps unwavering, without looking back. I knew that if I turned around and saw his remorseful expression, my heart might waver slightly, But for my own sake and for the child in my womb, I had to sever all thoughts related to him. Jiang Yian didn't follow, he just stood there, watching our retreating figures, tears falling like broken strings of pearls. In his hand, he still tightly clutched a few scattered pieces of miscarriage prevention medicine that had fallen to the ground, his nails turning white from the force. A gust of wind blew, and sycamore leaves rustled down, landing on his shoulders and head, as if mourning his regret and despair. He knew that this time, he had truly lost the person who had loved and cherished him the most. All he could do now was watch from afar, clumsily trying to make up for the grave mistake he had made. The moonlight in the small courtyard was gentle, spilling onto the stone table and casting a cold gleam on the leaves of the spider plant in the pot. I had just finished the silver ear fungus soup Lin Mo had made when I heard a faint rustling outside the courtyard gate, as if someone was deliberately treading softly. Lin Mo stood up first to open the door, while I remained seated in the wicker chair, already sensing what was coming. Sure enough, the next moment, Jiang Yian's figure appeared at the entrance. He was damp with dew, clearly having stood outside for a long time. He hadn't left the small town these past few days, just as he had said, keeping watch from a distance. Sometimes, when Lin Mo and I went for a walk, I would see him following behind, maintaining a careful distance, his eyes filled with pain and pleading, yet not daring to approach. Mr. Jiang, you're already affecting Nyan Nyan's rest. Lin Mo blocked the doorway, his tone serious. Please leave. Jiang Yian didn't look at Lin Mo, his gaze passed over him and landed directly on me. His eyes were bloodshot, his stubble had grown longer, and he looked even more haggard than the last time I saw him, as if he hadn't slept well for several nights. Nyan Nyan, I just want to say a few words, I'll leave right after. His voice was thick with a nasal tone, sounding particularly hoarse. I raised my hand to signal Lin Mo to step aside and slowly stood up. My belly was already showing, and even in a loose dress, the slight curve was visible. I placed a hand on my abdomen, looking at him calmly. What do you want to say? Jiang Yian stepped into the courtyard, his footsteps light, as if afraid of disturbing something. He pulled a small red booklet from his chest and handed it to me. It was our marriage certificate. The edges of the document were already worn and frayed, clearly from being taken out frequently. Ma Sho, Nyan Nyan, let's remarry. His voice trembled, his eyes filled with humble hope. I've completely cut ties with Su Wanqing, and I've handed over the company matters to my deputy. From now on, I can devote myself entirely to taking care of you and the child. I'll give you whatever you want, support you in whatever you do. Can we start over? I looked at that marriage certificate, feeling no ripple of emotion in my heart. This little red booklet once held all my hopes and expectations, but now, it only carried a heavy sense of irony. I didn't take it, just said calmly, Jiang Yian, I've long been planning to file for divorce, I just haven't had the chance yet. His hand suddenly stiffened, and the marriage certificate fell onto the stone table with a soft thud. No. You can't do this. He shook his head, his eyes filled with despair. We still have a child. Nyan Nyan can't grow up without a father. Mentioning the child, my eyes turned a few degrees colder. Whether the child has a father or not isn't up to you. I gently stroked my belly, my tone firm. From the moment you made that choice at the hospital, you lost the right to be his father. This child is my treasure alone. His world doesn't need someone who once abandoned him and his mother. I didn't mean to. Jiang Yian suddenly grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it made me wince in pain. Lin Mo immediately stepped forward to pull him away, but I stopped him with a look. I was too panicked at the time. Wanqing kept crying out in pain, and I lost my head, his voice choked with tears, and they fell onto the back of my hand, scalding hot but unable to warm my long frozen heart. Nyan Nyan, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Give me another chance. Let me make it up to you and our child. Okay, I'm willing to give everything I have in exchange. I forcefully pulled my hand back, took a step back, and put distance between us. I don't want anything you have. I looked at him, my eyes holding no hatred, only complete release. Jiang Yian, you never knew. What I wanted was never your money, not your status, just a little bit of your care and favor. But what about you? You gave all your tenderness and patience to Su Wanqing, leaving only neglect and indifference for me. I had planned to tell you about my pregnancy on our 3rd anniversary. I even prepared the baby's little clothes, wanting to surprise you. I paused, my voice slightly hoarse but still calm. But that day, you got a call from Sue Wanching and turned and left without even saying happy anniversary. On the day of the car accident, lying in the hospital bed, I watched you choose her without hesitation. At that moment, I knew it was completely over between us. Jiang Yian's body swayed, and he stumbled back a few steps. Leaning against the courtyard wall to barely stand, he opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but not a single word came out, only tears streamed down his face, his shoulders trembling violently. I'm living very well now. I looked at him, a sense of relief in my voice. Li Mo will take care of me, love me, and our child. We have no conflict, no harm in this small town, only peace and stability. This is the life I want. Lin Mo walked to my side, gently placed a hand on my shoulder, and gave me a determined look. He turned to Jiang Yian. His tone calm but carrying an undeniable force. Mr. Jiang, Nyan Nyan has made her choice. Please do not disturb his life again. This is the best protection for him and for the child. Jiang Yian's gaze fell on our intertwined hands, then shifted to my slightly protruding belly. The light in his eyes gradually extinguished, leaving only a void. He finally understood that all his regret and pleas were in vain. He had pushed away the person he should have cherished most, and now there was no turning back. He slowly bent down, picked up the marriage certificate from the ground, and clutched it tightly. The red booklet seemed particularly glaring under the moonlight. He didn't say another word, just gave me a deep look filled with immense regret, pain, and reluctance. Finally, he turned and walked out of the courtyard, step by step. The sound of his footsteps gradually faded, disappearing into the night. I knew, this time, he was truly leaving. Lin Mo gently patted my back. Don't overthink it. Get some rest early. I nodded and sat back down in the rattan chair. The moonlight was still cool, but it no longer felt chilling. I touched my belly, feeling the slight movement of the little life within, and a gentle smile slowly curved my lips. Jiang Yian, thank you for letting go. You've made me understand what true happiness is. We both have our own paths now. You missed me. You missed our child. This is